Hello, my lovely Bloom group. I thought it'd be nice to pop on this lovely Friday afternoon and just share a kind of coaching tool that I use often in my work. And it's about asking you to have a think about your ideal life. Most of the time, it's really difficult to identify the gaps that are causing problems, the gaps where you feel less fulfilled or less content or less happy. So creating a picture of a person's ideal life is a really valuable tool to help find the gaps between the ideal and the reality. And often when a client identifies those gaps, that's when the motivation is born to help them step out of the security of what they know and make major life changes. So there are lots of aspects of this kind of activity that we could focus on, but I want to focus on two areas of life and just leave this with the group because I don't know personally your circumstances. It's just a really nice little activity to get you thinking. It's also a really lovely way to allow yourself to dream, because I want you to really think about your ideal, visualize the best life that you could live. And I want you to try and visualize it in two different areas specifically. So your lived environment, the house you live in, its setting, the rooms, the decor, what you're surrounded by, those kinds of things. I want you to think about your lived environment. That also can include where you work, the office, where you do your work. And I want you to visualize the ideal of that. What does that look like? What do those rooms look like? Where is that setting? Where's that house? What kind of home is it? What kind of things are you surrounded by within that? And I want you to compare it to your reality now. And then with those two things, you can kind of identify the gaps between what you want and what you've got. Okay, so that's one area that I want you to think about. And then the other big area of life, relationships, family and relationships. Do the same thing there. Really consider visualizing the perfect life for you. You know, who are you sharing it with? What does your family, friendships, married life, partnerships, single life look like in your ideal mind, in your ideal world? And again, compare that to what you have now. Are there any gaps? And in this process of kind of identifying gaps and also deciding how wide or narrow the gaps are between where you're at and where you want to be, it's a really positive way to help you identify how you're feeling, what you really want that you might not have considered, because how often do we sit down and allow ourselves to dream about the ideal? And it can give you a clue as to where you need to focus some attention and energy in your life to make some positive changes. The Ideal Life tool, it translates really well into your ideal role. So you could reflect the same thing into your career. You know, what role is there that would suit your passions and your skills and your expertise and experiences? What would be your ideal role? What would that look like? How close does that fit with what you're doing now, how you're spending your time? You could also, from a business perspective, translate the ideal model into the team that you have around you. You know, what does your ideal team look like? Who are they? How many of them are in that team? What are their skill sets? What do they bring to the table? What does that ideal model look like for you? So from a business owner perspective, it's a really valuable exercise because it's about identifying gaps. And the whole process of coaching is about identifying gaps and closing them. So it's quite a nice thing to do. It's the weekend. You've got lots of time to kind of, well, or not if you've got children and various things going on, but it's a great time to reflect. The working week is done. So take this time and just those two areas, your lived environment, your relationships. What does your ideal life look like in those two areas? What does it look like now? You know, how near or far are you from that ideal? And maybe then start thinking about whether it's time to do something about it. Food for thought, food for thought. Happy Friday.